Peekaboo. I see you. Well, hi, I'm in my sunroom again, uh, and I'm going to talk about how plants transport junk inside them. We're really mostly going to focus on water. That's why I talked to you about water. I had you watch that super informative video about water. Anyways, now I'm going to talk about how it moves around in plants. So, I hope you prepared yourself. I sure have. Yep. So we're on 49 of those notes there. We're about to wrap this boy up. So what we're going to talk about is transport in plants. It's really a combination of a few factors. And so I'll introduce those. No, cut. I'll introduce those to you. I didn't cut it out. I know. I'll introduce those to you here in this lesson. And then we'll get into some more detail with a couple assignments. I've got a lab. I'll figure out a way to I guess make that useful for you. I'm sure I'll be able to find some stuff online. Anyways, I'll get you. So 49, what factors contributed to transport, combine to transport materials in plants? So 49. So we're talking about root pressure, which is something we'll kind of talk about a little bit. Definitely we'll discuss capillary action. And then we've got transpiration. So those are the big boys. So really capillary action and transpiration are the important things. And root pressure is related to capillary action too and transpiration. So anyways, we'll discuss those. And it helps explain how we get water from the roots in like a really tall tree. The pine tree across the street from my classroom there, those are 50-foot tall white pine trees. How do you get water from the roots to the leaves all the way at the tip top? Well, all these things: root pressure, capillary action, and transpiration. So here we go. Well, we got a couple of important properties of water we need to understand. So the first thing is cohesion. Co means together. So if water is attached to water, they stick together, we call that cohesion. So that's how, in this context, that's how we got to worry about it. So I showed you on the whiteboard before, it happens because you have hydrogen bonds connecting the polar ends of water molecules together, attaching them. So if it's water stuck to another water molecule with a hydrogen bond, it is called cohesion. But sometimes water sticks to stuff that isn't water, adhesion. So that's as long as water is sticking to something that's not also water, we call it adhesion. And so we see this in a few different contexts. I have a little video. Maybe I'll embed that video next. Who knows? Anyways, they will combine these two properties in a tube. You got to remember, plants are made of lots of small tubes. In the xylem, we have tracheids and vessel elements, so you know there are a whole bunch of little tubies in there. Well, we'll see what happens when water goes in a tube. Okay, next. Okay, let's hit up 51 here. What is capillary action? Well, it's water rising in a tube. You got a little tube. Oh, did you hear that? There's a Cooper's hawk. He just flew up. Whoop. Cooper's hawk. He came after my birds at the bird feeder. He didn't murder them though. They all scattered. They all flew away. But he would try to eat them, no doubt. Capillary action. Okay. When water is in a tube, it automatically rises on its own. It's a passive process. All right, I'll describe that. I'll describe that a little bit more on the next slide. So, but capillary action happens more when the tube is narrower. I'll let you ponder that for one moment, and then I'll describe it on the next slide. But 52 talks about how the thinness of a tube influences that capillary action, the amount of capillary action. Have you heard of capillary before? Capillaries, like in your body, the tiny blood vessels at the end of your fingertips and on your surface of your skin. Cooper's hawk is still there. Yeah, I'm gonna get my camera. there he is. It's the next day now, if you can tell. That's him. He strives. Okay, well, that was fun. So as far as how capillary action works, back to this. So remember, water has the properties of adhesion and cohesion. We just talked about those. So water sticks to the sides of the tubes because of adhesion, right? So water sticks to the sides of the glass tubes. It's adhesive. Glass is also made of polar molecules. So anyways, they stick. And then water, as it sticks to these, kind of climbs like a little ladder. That's how you can think of it. Climbs a little ladder of hydrogen bonds inside the tube. And as the water climbs these hydrogen bond ladders, it brings other water molecules up with it. They're holding on to like the other water molecules are forming basically a chain all the way down. All right, all the way down. So I have some videos to explain and illustrate that coming up too. But essentially, capillary action is combining the properties of adhesion and cohesion when you put water in a tube. So water climbs. It's like climbing a ladder, and then underneath, or I guess behind the other water molecules, are more water molecules attached to each other through cohesion. So adhesion is them climbing the ladder. Cohesion is grabbing onto each other's feet, right? Eventually, you've got so many water molecules grabbing onto your little feet through hydrogen bonds that you can't keep climbing. Well, you can minimize the number of guys that can grab onto your feet if you have a very, very narrow tube. So water climbs higher when the tube is narrower. So I will illustrate that soon, don't worry. If my beautiful mustached analogy didn't get you there. All right, next. 53 is what two plant structures contribute to capillary action. Well, we're talking water, so we're talking xylem, right? Xylem transports water. And then we're talking about the two cell types in xylem, which is tracheids and vessel elements. So there you go. So capillary action happens through those tracheids and vessel elements. They are the small tubes, all right, that make up the vascular tissue in plants, specifically the xylem. So that's what's going on. And it can go real high. Okay. Let's talk transpiration. So we discussed when we were talking about leaves, these little openings in leaves called stomata, all right, through which there's room for gas exchange. And water also evaporates through those stomata. We call water evaporating from the leaves transpiration. So in big plants, we're actually going to talk about the role that transpiration plays in transport of water through the xylem. So as water molecules evaporate, it basically pulls water up with it. So as a water molecule evaporates from a leaf, you can see the little blue arrows saying water's coming out of here. Well, how does water replace it? Think of it as a chain of long water molecules all the way down through the xylem to the roots. All right. And as a water molecule escapes a leaf, as it transpires, as it evaporates, it's going to pull the next water molecule up to replace it. Remember, the water is stuck to each other because of cohesion. So every time water molecule escapes, it pulls another one up to replace it. So we call this transpirational pull. That's the idea of what's going on here. Okay, so as a water molecule evaporates, it just pulls the next bit of water up with it. It's this kind of pulling tension extends all the way down to the roots. So it helps draw water into the roots, up through the xylem, out from the leaves. So a constant kind of flow of water. This video I will embed here will help explain that. I hope I can embed. I might have to direct you separately to it. Who knows? I'll try. Did you hear that downy woodpecker? I gotta stop recording out here. This is distracting. Or at least gotta close this window.
Plants transport water and nutrients from their roots to their leaves through a vascular tissue called xylem. These are dead, empty cells which connect end to end, forming long continuous tubes. Because water molecules carry a slight electric charge, they're attracted to each other. This natural attraction, known as cohesion, links the molecules in long continuous chains. At the leaves, water escapes the xylem and evaporates through microscopic pores on the surface called stomata. As each molecule breaks loose, it pulls up another molecule to take its place. This continuous pulling tension extends all the way down the xylem tube to the roots. Here, the rising chain of molecules keeps pressure low, allowing water and nutrients to enter through osmosis.
Okay, so 55, that's where we are. So what happens when there's an excess of water? So normally, if there's the correct amount of water in a leaf, everything's perfect. But if you have lots of water, if the plant has lots of water, it's rained recently or whatever, right, then the pressure in the guard cells opens up the stomata. It basically says, hey, we can open up shop and we can allow for transpiration because we got enough water to afford it, right? So then the excess water that you absorbed through the recent rainfall escapes. So you have more transpiration. So more water permits more transpiration. That's handy, isn't it? Okay, so the opposite of that happens when you don't have much water, right? We're in a drought. You are a bad plant mom and you didn't water your plant in a while. You know who you are. Well, when that happens, you have the opposite, which is that low water pressure, a lack of water, means the guard cells collapse. They kind of shrink down, and that closes up our stomata. All right, and if the stomata are closed, it prevents transpiration, it prevents water loss, which is good. So basically, it's a plant strategy of holding on to what little water it has, right? We call this wilting. So when that happens, when you have a diminishing water pressure, the plant cells are not those strong, rigid bricks anymore. They get kind of sad and floppy. You've all seen a plant that you haven't watered in a while. Usually you can just water him up, boop, he's all happy and good to go again. Anyways, that's called wilting. So it's a lack of water pressure in the guard cells and then overall in the rest of the cells of the leaf. Okay? All related to transport of water through the plant. Okay, so here it is, question 1. We got a couple questions here. So in a plant stem, where does water go? A, B, C, D? What do you think? This is actually really straightforward and easy, isn't it? You better believe it is easy. Which of the following is not involved in the movement of water in the xylem tissue? That's pretty good. We know which are involved. When water moves through xylem, which is tubes, water moving through a tube, what's that called? Capillary action. So C is not a correct answer here. Capillary action happens because water sticks to itself and to other things. So cohesion and adhesion, that means we're left with osmosis, which is related to water, but that is not what we're talking about here, guys. No. Okay, here it is. So last question I'm going to ask you here. So in super, super tall trees, what is the primary means of moving water through the xylem? And we know that capillary action happens, right? So the problem with that is eventually water cannot keep rising all on its own, despite how narrow the tube is, right? It's just too heavy. There's too much water stuck to it, more water through cohesion. So that's not the big boy. The big boy, yep, transpiration. So water evaporating from the leaf helps pull water up through that xylem. There you go. Shh. Secrets. This isn't really a secret. It's just kind of like a thing about me and the way I am. And that is to say, even when I'm here at home, when I'm at school, I almost never take steps one at a time. I usually skip them up. I'm not particularly in a hurry. It's just a little fun thing I do to keep myself spiced up. I skip steps. I don't know. I did it for a while when we went on our France and Spain trip when we were climbing the Eiffel Tower. Of course, my legs couldn't handle a whole lot of that because there are a lot of stairs on that bad boy. Anyways, you hear that red-bellied woodpecker? LG, friends, life's good. And don't forget, You only YOLO once.